All right, King Charles has been out and about. He visited Europe's largest Polish community centre in Hammersmith in central London.
Well, this follows on from his visit to Krakow last week to support a Polish-Jewish artist's work and celebrate with the local community. Well, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker was following events.
Europe's largest Polish centre, welcoming a very special visitor. King Charles met members of the community to help them celebrate and promote Polish culture in Britain. But some remember a time post-Brexit where a small minority chose to attack that culture. Here's Joanna Modziska, former chairman of the Polish Social and Cultural Association.
The staff came in the morning on the Sunday morning and found a very unpleasant graffiti across the glass at the front of the building. There were some very unpleasant things happening all around the country, but you know, we forget. We can't hold grudges.
But I was in Krakow the other day too briefly, but that's what.
The King reminisced about his time in Poland last week, attending the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. He was viewing paintings by Polish-Jewish artist Felix Fabian, who lived in London. But he did correct one caption, mislabelling the lifeguards as Coldstream Guards.
What do you usually use for picnics?
Upstairs, he met Polish people from all walks of life, education, culture and the military. Piotr Wilczek, Poland's ambassador to the UK, praises His Majesty's support.
The King's support is very important. The King, as Prince of Wales, was in this Polish Cultural Centre exactly 15 years ago. So this is his second visit, and he remembers the centre very well, and he wanted to come back, to come again, because this is a hub for the Polish community.
Perhaps a highlight for the King was reuniting with 102-year-old World War II veteran Edmund Niedzielski. He's met the King on several occasions, including last June for the D-Day 80 commemorations.
He said to me, "I remember you." So he's got a very good memories as well, as I do.
Before he left, the King spent time talking to members of the public. He was particularly taken with Prudence, a white Pomeranian.
We just headed shampoo.
His Majesty still continues his weekly cycle of cancer treatment, but shows no sign of slowing down. Cameron Walker, GB News in Hammersmith.
Good to see the King out and about in the community. But in other royal news, and this is pretty bombshell, or could be at least, Prince Harry's US immigration records could be published by a judge in Washington, D.C. following claims he concealed his past drug use.
Well, joining us now is royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Good to see you this morning, Richard. And this is a significant development, is it not?
It is indeed, because last September, the judge ruled there wasn't a widespread public interest in going further into whether or not, when Harry applied for a visa and his application form, did he or did he not mention that he had taken drugs, something he's written about in his memoir Spare, and also, of course, talked about in interviews. And there's no doubt at all that this has the feeling of being possibly somewhat dramatic. I mean, we don't know exactly where this is going to go. The Department of Homeland Security, what they do make public may be very redacted, so we may not know. But equally, of course, Donald Trump is in the White House, and that could be, well, that is a very new factor in this. He told Nigel Farage on GB News that if Harry had lied, this would mean appropriate action might be taken or would be taken. So it very definitely could be somewhat explosive for the Sussexes.
Yes, and you mentioned it there, the President's interview with Nigel Farage on GB News some months ago. He also said that Harry had betrayed the Queen, and we all know what a big fan of Donald Trump is of the late Queen Elizabeth. You know, very proud and boastful of his time with her, and said they had a great relationship. And you just think, you know, maybe 6 months ago, the idea that his immigration records would be unveiled and he'd be even deported for lying on them was, I guess, fantasy. But when you see what Donald Trump is doing now in the US, he seems like a man on a mission. He's talking about taking the Panama Canal, Greenland. He's pardoned people he said he'd pardon. He's banned men from women's sports. He's getting things done. So you just start to think now, could this become a reality? Is President Trump going to send Harry packing back to the UK?
Well, this is something that, well, of course, we simply don't know at the moment. But yes, the specific quote from President Trump was a year ago, if it was up to me, I wouldn't protect him. He disrespected the Queen. That's unforgivable. He'd be on his own if he was up to me. Well, it now is, and we'll have to see, because I don't think this is something that the royal family want, because Harry is still the fifth in line to the throne. It would be a cause célèbre. He'd appeal in the courts. He's had victories in the courts here against what he's claimed as press intrusion. Well, now we may see something very different emerge. We simply, of course, at the moment don't know. But the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing think tank, which has brought this case and then brought it again after losing last year, obviously they've been somewhat hopeful about this. But as I say, we must wait and see until it's actually revealed what's in the application form that is actually made public. But Harry was very, very unwise to talk about it as openly as he has, including an interview, for example, with Dr. Gabor Mate, who was a controversial figure, and he went into it in some detail. It should, in fairness, be mentioned, of course, that taking drugs was Harry's way of dulling the pain after the tragic death of the Princess of Wales. But he shouldn't have talked about it and written about it as he has.
Yeah, Richard Fitzwilliams, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? Because that may have been really short-sighted of Prince Harry. Great for book sales to talk about your drug use. Not so good for the US visa application.
Do you think Brits would welcome him back with open arms if he'd been booted out of America?
I think some would. I think there's still a lot of love there for Prince Harry, but I think for some people, he's made his bed now.
Maybe he could
in Los Angeles.
Maybe he could move into Royal Lodge with Prince Andrew, Uncle Andy.
Maybe.
And yeah.
Let us know what you think. Would you welcome Harry back with open arms? gbnews.com/your say.
Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. Grenfell Tower is set to be demolished 8 years after a fire claimed the lives of 72 people. Bereaved families of the fire were told of the government's decision last night at a meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. However, members of the Grenfell United group have said that some of the bereaved and survivors are upset about not having their views heard or considered in the decision.
The Bank of England is expected to cut interest rates today. Analysts predict the benchmark rate will reduce from 4.75% to 4.5% as the bank comes under pressure to boost the UK economy, which has been showing slow growth. The change could mean the cost of borrowing will fall to its lowest point in more than 18 months.
The harm of social media for children is like the cancer risk of smoking. That's according to the head of counter-terrorism. Matt Dukes is calling on the UK now to follow Australia by banning under-16s from websites. He added that the online radicalisation and isolation during the pandemic had led to a surge in young people appearing in the casework of MI5 and counter-terror police.